It's only been 6 months, and Keir Starmer's Labour are already in massive trouble, because for the first time in history, Reform UK have now overtaken the Labour Party in the national opinion polls. They have gone into second place, while the Labour Party has slumped down into third place. Is anybody surprised? I hardly think so, especially considering we had a petition go around recently calling for a general election which reached under 3 million signatures. But this is why it's so interesting, because when it was announced that Reform UK had overtaken Labour in the polls, it was announced on the 5th of December. But the following day, on the 6th of December, we received a response from the government on the petition calling for a general election. So this was after the polls had been published. So if we read the response here, this government was elected on a mandate of change at the July 2024 general election. Our full focus is on fixing the foundations, rebuilding Britain and restoring public confidence in governments. But if we scroll down to the bottom here, the government will continue to deliver the manifesto of change that it was elected on. So it's very unlikely we're going to get a general election anytime soon. But I think Labour are particularly rattled by the fact that Reform UK have overtaken them in the polls. Because let's be honest, the Labour Party are not going to agree to a general election when they have such a huge majority in Parliament. And it's one of those things where no matter how much you can try and protest the result, they are going to stand firm because they don't want to forfeit the power that they've waited for the best part of 14 years to get back. And let's be clear, Starmer knows just how deeply unpopular he and the Labour Party are at the minute. I mean, he's gone on the record to admit that. But let's get back to the true story here, which is looking at the rise of Reform UK. If you look at this graph here, this poll, in a survey that was held asking voters if a general election was called tomorrow, how would you vote? 26% said they'd vote Conservative, 24% said they'd vote Reform, 23% said they'd vote Labour. Now, people who look at that survey may say to me, well, hang on a second. The Conservatives are in the number one slot, so surely they're the best bet to defeat Labour if they're currently polling higher than everybody else. I would argue differently. Of course, the Conservatives are a grounded, established political force. They've been doing this for God knows how many years, so they've got voters all over the place who will back them to the hilt no matter what. So of course, it's naturally to be expected that they will be up there and they have the resources to maintain that level of polling. But what I think is more striking is the fact that Reform UK, a relatively new party, people forget, they were born initially as the Brexit Party, as a protest vote because the establishment failed to enact the will of the people by leaving the European Union on time. And as a result of that, they've since rebranded to Reform UK, and are now rising so fast in the polls, they've now gone into second place above another established political party, the Labour Party. So who's to say that Reform UK can't do the same thing with the Conservatives? And this was posted on X recently saying that an insider source within Number 10 is seriously concerned about Reform UK's momentum because, based on these existing polls, the following cabinet ministers would lose their seats: Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Chris Bryant, and Shabana Mahmood. But let's go ahead and take a listen to this.
Reform are actually overtaking Labour in the polls. Do tell us more.
Well, this is interesting and very interesting indeed. So a new poll has put of 2,607 adults conducted on Wednesday before the relaunch of this part of the government, if that's what it was, gave Labour 23 points, but ahead of them, Reform 24 points, Conservatives 26 points. That would equate, were there an election today, to maybe 95 MPs for Reform UK.
I would just add as well, it is still very early days. I mean, we currently have, the best part of 4.5 years until the next general election. So things can change dramatically within the course of a couple of years. So we take it with a pinch of salt, but I think it's very interesting to see the indication of where we are currently going in terms of the voting intentions.
Big beasts in the Labour Party would lose their seat. Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Shabana Mahmood, all in the shadow cabinet. Chris Bryant, number 2 in the culture department. So big names would fall, put to the sword, if you like, by Farage's army. And that is the risk. And I've been told by a very, very senior source, that a very, very senior source in number 10 has admitted they are 50-50 on whether the Tories or Reform are the main target.
Now, of course, if we see what we saw at the last election, where the Conservative vote is split between the Tories and Reform UK, then there is still an open path for Labour to storm through the way they did and retain power. So eventually what we could end up seeing as well is a coalition agreement between the the Conservative Party, and Reform UK. Now, how that looks, I have no idea, whether it's standing down in certain areas of the country where one party can win, or agreeing on certain policies to implement once they both are in a coalition government. We don't know what that looks like, but if there is a chance for both of these parties to get into government, I feel very confident that there could be an agreement reached sooner rather than later. But let's see what happens. If Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, and Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, do decide to put an agreement in place and work together, I will make one prediction. Come the next general election, they will absolutely walk it. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this situation. What should happen here? Should Reform UK and the Conservatives work together, or are you leaning one way or the other? Or do you think that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party can turn it around? Please let me know. All opinions are welcome. As usual, I'll be returning soon, but until then, hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all later. Take care.